These places aren't just abandoned. They're trapped in a loop, condemned to rust in silence, surrounded by fog, vines, and forgotten dreams. Hi, I'm Lily Bell, and today, alongside Walt, we're diving into 5 theme parks in Japan that were once full of life and now feel more like haunted relics.
Number 5. Expoland.
In 1970, Japan hosted the World Expo in Osaka. It was a celebration of progress, innovation, and the future. And right next to the Expo site, they built an amusement park, Expoland. What was supposed to be temporary quickly became permanent. For over 3 decades, families filled this park with laughter and screams of delight. It had roller coasters, spinning rides, carousels, and one very special attraction, Fujinrajin 2, a steel roller coaster named after the Japanese gods of thunder and wind. It was bold, it was fast, and it became the crown jewel of Expoland. But in 2007, everything changed. On May 5th, during what should have been a normal ride, disaster struck. A wheel axle snapped in the middle of the ride. The lead car derailed and slammed into a railing at full speed. A 19-year-old woman lost her life. 19 others were seriously injured. And when investigators looked deeper, they found something unthinkable. That same axle hadn't been inspected in 15 whole years. Not once. Expoland shut down immediately. Fujinrajin 2 was dismantled, and with it, the public's trust was shattered. From 2007 to 2009, Expoland sat in silence. The rides were fenced off. Rust crawled across every bolt and beam. The joy? Gone. Nature started taking over. Grass pushed through the pavement, and vines crept along the rails. The screams were replaced by wind, and every twisted piece of metal just stood there, waiting. By 2009, it was final. No signs, no roller coasters, just memories. But Osaka didn't forget. They built Expo City on top of it. A mall, with stores, a cinema, and a giant Ferris wheel. But if you've ever walked through it, you'll know something feels off. Like the past is still hiding under the floor. Expoland may be gone, but its shadow is still there, quiet, still, watching.
Number 4. Greenland Theme Park.
In 1973, deep in the foggy mountains of Hobara, a small town in Fukushima, a new amusement park opened its gates. Takakanonuma Greenland. The dream? To recreate a Western-style theme park like Greenland Resort in Kumamoto. But this one was different. It stood hidden in a mist-wrapped forest. A roller coaster, a carousel, Ferris wheel, ghost house, and rides for the whole family. But from the first day, things unraveled. The weather was relentlessly damp, the fog constant. The rides began to rust fast. People didn't show up. Attendance plummeted. And then the stories surfaced. Malfunctions, accidents, even deaths. Tales the fog still carries to this day. In just 2 years, the park closed, officially due to technical difficulties. But over a decade later, something strange happened. In 1986, Takakanonuma Greenland reopened. There was new management, new investments, and new hopes. The rides were repainted. The buildings were restored. They even added more attractions to bring in families. But the fog was still there, and so were the stories. Takakanonuma Greenland never recovered. It was located hours from the nearest city, and the winters were harsh. It barely held on. Visitors preferred modern parks. Tokyo Disneyland was booming. By 1999, Takakanonuma shut down for good. But this time, the gates were never locked. For more than a decade, the park stood abandoned. Nature began to take it back. Trees grew through the roller coasters. Vines crept over every metal beam. The ride slowly decayed in the mist. Urban explorers who visited in the early 2000s described it as surreal. The carousel still had its horses. The coaster tracks twisted into the fog. And the silence, only silence. Some said you could hear the old machinery creak at night, as if the park was trying to come back to life. Inside one of the buildings, visitors found old arcade cabinets, broken animatronic parts, and dusty teddy bears, arranged like they were frozen mid-performance. In the dark, props and decorations lay scattered. It felt less like an abandoned theme park and more like a nightmare, suspended in time. In the mid-2010s, the remains of the park were quietly demolished. Today, nothing is left. No signs, no fences, no ruins. Only the fog remains, and the memory of a theme park that felt more like a dream than reality.
Number 3. Western Village.
Kenny to Ominami is a clear example that the most important thing in life is not to make money, but to make your dreams come true. And that is why Ominami created Western Village in 1970, as a family ranch where guests could go horse riding, lasso practice, go fishing in a fish pond, and many more activities, all in the style of the Old West. Over time, the park started to grow. They acquired more horses, built more attractions, and hired more staff, including performers for live shows. The park was an instant success, bringing 1 million guests per year, but Ominami's ambition was immense, and he wanted more, so he decided to expand the park. So in 1995, he wanted to bring the beautiful landscapes of South Dakota into the park after watching the film Dancing with Wolves. To do this, he decided to create a 1/3 scale replica of Mount Rushmore that cost $27 million. He also added animatronics to the attractions. There was a John Wayne animatronic, a canteen full of robotic cowboys, and a haunted house that included a Grim Reaper dressed as a dentist. A train system and a Mexico theme land were also added. In 2007, the park grew, but so did its debts, and with the opening of Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea, fewer and fewer people were visiting the parks, so Western Village declared bankruptcy and had to close. Now the park is completely abandoned. Inside the cantina, the robots remain, rotting away with the pass of time. John Wayne's animatronic is still at the park, but it is practically destroyed. Now, the thought of entering a haunted house attraction is scary itself. Now imagine entering an abandoned one. Inside you can find many creepy mannequins and props, and even a creepy lady half buried in stone. The interior of the Mount Rushmore replica is also completely abandoned, dark, and terrifying. On the first floor of the room, there are several teddy bears in various poses and disguises interacting with props. Some of them are in good condition, others not so lucky. Then on the next floor is what used to be called the People's Game Center, but sadly there were no games left, just a lot of dark, empty spaces. And then on the top floor, we can find a diorama of sad-looking Indians, and the best part, looming in the dark, an Abraham Lincoln animatronic statue. Of course, it's now powered, and probably it was switched off the last time mid-speech, because his jaw seems to be forever half open. There is also a small-size model of Mount Rushmore, several flags, maps, and the history of many states. The Mexico area was also left to rot. The train system is completely covered in grass, and the 2 locomotives are rusted. The park that was supposed to be a cowboy town became a ghost town, and there are no plans to restore it.
Number 2. Nar Dreamland.
Judging Nar Dreamland as a cheap knockoff or ripoff of Disneyland is not only incorrect, but very unfair and cruel, since it stains the vision and dreams of creator Kunzio Matsuo. The story of Nar Dreamland is much more complicated than it seems, thanks to the fact that there are several versions that try to explain what happened. One version says that Kunzio Matsuo, creator of Nar Dreamland, cynically copied Disneyland after visiting the park and decided to take it to Japan. This version is 100% false. There are other versions that say that Kunzio Matsuo presented the project to Disney, and Disney was on board. Supposedly, the two planned to bring Disneyland to Nara, and worked hard to build the park. But in the end, the deal fell apart after Disney changed some things they had agreed on about the licensing of the characters. This is also not exactly true. The story is a lot more complicated. In the late 1950s, Kunzio Matsuo, owner and president of the Matsuo Entertainment Company, visited Disneyland on one of his business trips. As soon as he entered Disneyland, he fell in love with the place and felt inspired to bring a Disneyland to Japan's former capital, Nara. He met with Walt to discuss the idea of bringing Disneyland to Japan. Walt was not interested at first with the idea of opening a Disney park in Japan, so he just told Matsuo that when the time came to do it, the company would help him out. But Walt was really left struck by Matsuo's enthusiasm when he visited again, and brought along engineers to tell him about the project. So he agreed to give Matsuo his know-how associated with managing an amusement park for free, and even sent some of his engineers to the construction site. His intention was never to create a Disneyland in Japan, but help the Japanese themselves build an amusement park that was unique to Japan. Using these resources, the company explicitly designed this theme park and modeled it after Disneyland, under the hopes that Disney would eventually license naming and character rights to them. But that day never came. Apparently, when the park was finished, Matsuo asked for the licensing, thinking that because the park was done, Disney would give it to them. But Disney refused because it was never their plan to give the rights to Matsuo. So, Matsuo Entertainment rebranded its park to Nar Dreamland and proceeded with plans to open its doors. They released a statement that said that licensing fees were the reason that Disneyland deal was scrapped, while Disney refused to make any official comment. Some people say that Matsuo decided to then pay for Disney's previous help and advice, but no one knows for sure. On July 1st, 1961, Nar Dreamland was open to the public. Because Matsuo Entertainment modeled the park after Disneyland, the two parks had many similarities, like a type of Main Street and the familiar Sleeping Beauty Castle. It also had a Matterhorn-type mountain, with a skyway running through it, as well as an Autopia-type ride and a monorail. The park also had its own mascots, Ran-chan and Dori-chan, two children dressed as bearskin guards. It was divided into 5 areas: Land of the Future, Land of Illusion, Land of Adventure, Land of the Past, and Main Street. Nar Dreamland was really popular when it opened because it was the closest thing to Disneyland in Japan. At its peak, the park had 1.6 million visitors a year, and everything was going great until in 1979, when the Oriental Land Company started talking with the Walt Disney Company to create a Disney theme park in Tokyo. Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, and this resulted in a massive reduction of guests for Nar Dreamland, since people were interested in going to an official Disney park. This marked the beginning of the downfall for Dreamland, with attendance numbers dropping to around 1 million visitors a year. Then the Matsuo Entertainment Company, including Nar Dreamland, was bought by the supermarket chain Daiei in 1993. The opening of Tokyo Disneyland would not be the only blow that Nar Dreamland would receive, because in 2001, Tokyo Disney Sea opened its doors along with Universal Studios Japan. After those two parks opened, Dreamland's attendance numbers worsened, plummeting to 400,000 visitors a year. In 2004, the park began to decline in quality. Some stores closed down and some attractions started to rust. And on August 31st, 2006, the park sadly closed its doors after 45 years of operation. When the park was closed, the owners didn't bother to clean anything up. They simply left it as it is. After 8 years, the abandoned park became an attraction in its own right. People began trespassing into the property in order to visit it. This resulted in the park being vandalized and props getting stolen and moved around. In 2013, the city auctioned off this site. No applications for acquisition were received. In November 2015, the city put up the property for an auction again. A Japanese newspaper reported that SK Housing, a real estate company, offered $7.3 million. On October 16, 2016, SK Housing began the process of demolishing everything that was on the site. Demolition was completed on December 21, 2017. During the process, 30 rides and 75 buildings, including a multi-story garage, were disposed of. The area is now considered to be a picturesque place. Development of the area is regulated, so only medical facilities, social security institutions, schools, and sports grounds can be built there. Nar Dreamland is a literal representation of how dreams can become nightmares.
Number 1. Gulliver's Kingdom.
Our next abandoned theme park takes us all the way to Kamakura-shiki in the Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan. Inspired by the novel Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, this theme park has a giant 147-foot statue of Gulliver lying down. The statue is tied down and surrounded by the tiny Lilliputians, making one feel like they have stepped right into Lilliput. The theme park even had a nice view of Mount Fuji. For all intents and purposes, Gulliver's Kingdom sounds like a storybook theme park. Why then was it abandoned? The decision to build this park was an impulsive one taken by the government of Japan in the 90s to boost the economy. But right from the beginning, the park ran into bad luck, leading it to its impending doom. The construction of the park was financed by Niigata Chuo Bank, which collapsed due to non-performing loans. There were also a lot of employment controversies, even during the construction phase. The park was in operation only for 4 years. Even during this time, it barely had any rides. Apart from the giant statue, which was the park's main attraction, the most notable rides were a bobsled track and a luge course, neither of which were for kids. But the main reason for this park's failure was its unfortunate location. The park was built near Aokigahara, the infamous suicide forest of Japan. It is the second most popular suicide spot in the world, and more than 500 people have been said to have taken their lives here in the last 70 years. And if this wasn't enough, the Kamakushiki village was also the location of the headquarters of the Elm Shinrikyo Doomsday cult. Back in 1995, this cult had been responsible for the sarin gas nerve attacks in the Tokyo subway system, which had resulted in the deaths of 13 people. Their nerve gas production facility was also rumored to be in the same area. The park's proximity to such grim locations cut off people from visiting it, leading to its eventual demise. The stunning backdrop of this park only added to its eeriness, with nothing there other than the huge Gulliver statue, which is pinned to the ground by his hair. It looks like a city that was abandoned after a gruesome murder. The park was finally demolished in 2007.